Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
We are broadcasting live this morning from Mountain Lake Terrace near Seattle, Washington.
That's right. So thank you for joining us and welcome on in to Duzie Live.
Hopefully you can all hear us. We're in a house right now where everyone is sleeping.
It's 6 a.m. at this local time.
Quiet this morning.
Let's see if we can keep that up.
So welcome. If you would, when you come in, please take a moment and put your name and where you're located this morning. We're in Mountain Lake Terrace. And here they come. Welcome.
That's right. Direne is first in the door. Direne, welcome in from the Philippines. I'm guessing that's where you're at right now. And Jonathan, welcome and good morning.
It's always interesting to know who will be the first one to write it down. It's like we wait.
Direne and Jonathan are winning numbers.
We know there are a lot of people right now watching. I can see it on the board. So if you would, just put quickly in where you are located. Over the last several days, we've been in, I think, 15 different states. And so we've been a lot of places in the last week.
Yeah, so it took us 5 days to drive from Atlanta, Georgia, to here, Seattle, Washington. And we saw amazing things.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go.
Yeah, so we've got more people coming in. So I think I said Rian's coming in from South Africa, Hannah from the UK. Yeah, Direne from the Philippines. Whoop, first one in. Ellie from the UK. Thank you for joining us. Nathan, yay, from Canada.
We were very close to Canada. They're just probably an hour or so away at one point.
Megan from Sheffield, but I'm down in Suffolk with my mom, who is sitting here with me. Hi.
Hello, Mom.
Hi. Oh, that's cool to have.
And my mom's here.
Don and Cheryl from Marlette, Michigan. Dana from Cebu. Yay, we love the Philippines. From Cebu, that's awesome. Tim and Joni Thomas, my parents.
Happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to my dad and Susie's dad. Hello.
Samuel Tan, welcome in from Malaysia. One of our special guests, and David Taylor checking in from the UK. Welcome in, David.
So you'll see the lighting is going to be a little different today. We're in the basement where there's not a lot of natural light except right behind us. And so we're trying to adjust the light. Hopefully you can hear well. If you can see well and hear well, just put a yup. Maybe that's Y-U-P.
Or YEP, whatever you choose.
If it's okay sound-wise.
Catherine's here as well. We've got some special guests coming with us today on this Duzie Live. So we've seen already Rian coming in from South Africa and Samuel Tan coming in from Malaysia. And hopefully Shawnee is in, and maybe we're going to get Elaine in as well. So Samuel, we're going to let you
some very special
go through the process. And Rian, if you don't mind, put your hand up and come through the process so you can come in and get ready to be on video with us.
It looks like everyone's yipping or yupping us, so depends on where you live. If it's
yep,
a yup
yep.
or a yup.
Oh, cool.
So that's
good. Yep. Good. So everything, sound and lighting is great. Awesome. Just want to check and make sure if I have any, let's see.
Yeah. So we got in last night, just a little bit before dark. I got a really good night's sleep, so we are ready to go.
We've seen Dakota, our nephew. We've seen Joshua and Saskia. We haven't quite seen Josiah, and Laura. They came back from a camping trip as well, so we'll see them tonight. They were going down the freeway
one way when we were going the other way.
We were passing each other and
missed them.
We were trying to get here, so yeah. It looks like Samuel's here.
In the room. Let's see here. Yep. And then I think we're Rian.
Shawnee's
there.
Good.
Okay. Rian's in. This is so exciting.
All right. Yeah, Shawnee's here. So this is your life is a remarkable story.
Wait, take two. She just got her glasses on.
Are we okay here?
I think we're okay there.
There we go. Your life is a remarkable story and adventure that only you can create.
We motivate and equip you today to live fully alive.
Today in this Duzie Live, we're talking about relationship boundaries. This is part 2 with our special guests. It is Rian. Maybe Elaine will pop in either in the chat or live.
We're in South Africa.
Yep.
Elaine is in Wisconsin, in the U.S.
And then we have Samuel Tan in Malaysia, and we also have Shani in Malaysia. That's so cool. So we are so glad that you're here. And Rian's having a little trouble coming online. Maybe we have to let him in again.
We can do that. We have the ability.
That's why we try to do it early. Looks like Shani's in and Sam's in. That's awesome.
It's good.
So today, we want to just encourage you, as always, write your comments in the chat. We want you to talk with each other, talk with our guests, talk with us. The chat happens at the same time as whatever is happening visually on the screen with the video. And we love that the combination of everything is happening as usual. Keep it humming.
So today what we want to look at as we look at part 2 in the relationship boundaries would be how to actually build them. How do we know where to build them? How do we know how to strengthen them? How do we know how to communicate them? It's no good to have a boundary if you're the only one who knows. It's like having a piece of property, but you don't know where the line is. You must be able to communicate that with other people in the relationship, but sometimes people outside the relationship as well. We're also going to look a little bit at how do you reset them if maybe it's time to change the boundary, or maybe you've stepped over the boundary. How do you reset it? How do you rebuild it? And the need for accountability. So there's some of the things today we want to look at here on Duzie Live.
Yeah, so at any time you have questions, comments, emotional outbursts, put them in the chat, and we're going to have some time with them, and we might grab your questions in the midst of them talking. We always have a backstage where we keep going with the different questions that are going on.
Now, before
as well.
we bring our guests in, do you want to take a quick look at what we looked at last week as a review, and then we'll move forward?
Sure. So here we were last week talking about how to have excellent boundaries in your relationship by focusing in 3 directions. We talked about being pleasing to God. That is the up boundary. And our passage was from 1 Thessalonians 4.
Such a good passage.
And we talked about values and rhythms that help you be pleasing to God. Just quickly going through this.
And because the boundaries always are connected to the values. So we need to remember that.
And the rhythms, like what you do, what you value, and how you put it into place. And then secondly, we talked about inward, the direction of inward, being self-controlled. So as we're being pleasing to God, we control ourselves and we make personal choices for ourselves. And we talked about character and
temptations.
Yep, and just how we fix our eyes. We talked about the differences continue between guys
and it's like a kite
and
that you're
girls.
under control, but also out of control of the world.
And hopefully God's speaking to you
And
about self-control and not only up and in, but out in our relationship with others.
So we didn't get a lot of time last week to look at the relationship with others. This week is totally about that.
Yeah, so that's where we were. And it looks like we've got Samuel and Shani. Let's meet them.
Okay, both Samuel and Shani, if you would push the blue button, I think it is, that has a little video on it. It looks like
it
sort
microphone.
of like an eye. Yep, there you are.
Okay,
there you are.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
I can't quite yet. I got to get my headphones on.
Hey, welcome.
Oh, that's cool.
You guys are looking. And so what time is it there right now for you? It's nighttime, right?
Yeah, it's 9 p.m.
9 p.m.
9 p.m. in Malaysia. And where in Malaysia are you?
I'm now in the capital of Malaysia. So I'm actually just like 1 kilometer away from Sam's house.
Well, good.
So that's where you live in your house, yeah? And the capital of Malaysia, for those who don't know it, is what?
Kuala Lumpur.
Or KL.
KL. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful city.
Okay, so we've got some people.
Get Rian in here too.
Okay, Rian's still working to get in. Well, Rian is trying to get in. We'll just get to know you a little bit.
Now let me tell you, with Sam, we've known Sam quite a few years. He used to go to Teen Street, and I remember when we
Teen
were
Street
joining,
in Malaysia.
Right, we were joining the ship. We were in the Netherlands, and suddenly there's these 3 Malaysians coming. It was like, oh, good, and it was so nice to reconnect. And then we did 2 years on the Logos Hope together.
Yeah, and actually, Samuel was one of 24 at one time in the Duzie family. So on board on board the Logos Hope, we have families. And how was that to be a son of Dan and Susie Potter? Sam, tell us about that.
Well, honestly speaking, from the truth, I was really, really blessed because when the only person like I know was you guys as a parent, like the rest of them I don't really know, and during the time where we were chosen, okay, who will be our parents on the ship, and when I got Duzie, my heart was like, yes, at least someone I know and someone I feel comfortable with, and I know that the next 2 years I will take this place as a home. You know, I can feel more home, and I'm really blessed throughout the 2 years on board with you guys as my parents.
Yeah,
and we did a lot of birthdays and celebrations and cake eating together, and
yes,
that was great. And Shawnee would come over when it was party time and join us. She was from another family, but we
always took her in. Yes, that's great.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, we love that. And the other thing that was really cool, because you guys actually, we want to hear about your relationship in just a little bit, but you came onto the ship. This was kind of rare, but with a relationship already. And they needed to choose somebody to journey with them in the relationship, and we got to be the couple for them to journey with. What an honor for us to have you guys as the accountability couple. We call it SP, special permission, on the ship.
They call it salt and pepper as well, you know. It's like salt and pepper goes along together very well.
That's
very
awesome.
Good. So I just pushed for Rian to get back in, so he sort of pops in and out. So let's.
Okay, he's going on his computer now.
Okay.
So while we're doing it, will you guys just tell us a little bit? How did you get to know each other, and what was your process of coming into a relationship together? We'd love to just take some moments together. I don't know how you want to tell your story, and go for it. Tell your story.
Ladies first.
All right. Okay. So Sam and myself, so basically we met in our church, our current church. So the place that we are right now is the west part of Malaysia, and I'm actually from the east part of Malaysia, right? So, and then the reason of me coming to the West Malaysia, which is the capital, is because of the education and the work opportunity. So that's where I met him in the church. And then, so in the beginning, we were just kind of like hi-bye friends. So this is something very unique about our church, all right? There's like, there's many youth in our church, but a big majority of us are like me, you know, from the east part of Malaysia. So we are the Chinese educated one, all right? So Sam, who is like that originated from that church, most of them speak English, like English education. So actually this group of young people, even though we are in the same church, but we don't usually how should I say, we don't usually hang out with one another, because I think mainly due to the language barrier. Because for us we might think like, oh, those who speak English are more high class, you know, we don't know how to speak to them. And then, but so long story short, so that's where Sam, he saw the need to actually combine, you know, to unite all the young people within the church. So that's why he came out with an idea, you know, like, why not we organize like a combined youth camp in bilingual, so that we can, you know, break the ice and the bone between the two groups. So, and then, so yeah, and Sam and myself, so I am the representative from the Chinese speaking youth, and Sam is from the English one. So that's why we get to work along, and, you know, like our contact, our communication become more often because of this. Yeah.
That's good. I just have to ask a quick question to Sam. Did you organize that so you could go to camp with Shawnee? I mean, deep down, was it deeper reasons there?
No, I think it was God's planning and it was God's preparation, for us to get to know each other more by chance. And some things just go along the way unexpectedly, and we didn't even know that where this camp actually builds our friendship and then turned out to be a relationship. And so I think it was all God's planning, because we were just both leaders in just different youth group, and then we just get to know each other more, and then that's where the sparks comes in, and that's how we got together.
Oh, the sparks come in. Yeah, we want to hear more about that in just a moment. We especially want to hear your story, Sam, about the sparks. But Rian, welcome in. Yay, you made it in. And
Thank
Rian,
you guys. Hello.
where are you
Hello.
coming in from, Rian?
I'm coming in from South Africa right now, and at the moment at my parents' house, relaxing at their holiday home. So it feels like I'm on holiday.
Nice. Now tell us, you represent a relationship with Elaine, right? Tell us a little bit your story. I don't know. Elaine is working and she said she might jump into the chat or video, whatever she could, but you're definitely going to represent that relationship. Go for it, man. Tell us about your start and what happened in your dynamics, just at the beginning, especially.
Especially most of all the shippies know how the things were going to ship. But not to bend the rules a little bit, but I actually noticed Elaine at PST already.
And what is PST?
PST is a pre-ship training that before we go to the ship, we have to go through basic training to learn all the emergency procedures, or learn about the ship, or go through what the Duzies has taught us about storytelling, or life teachings and that sort of thing. And that was really incredible, where we all actually have met each other, especially Sam and Shani there as well. What I noticed about Elaine, first of all, was a laugh, I would say. She was a very outgoing girl, and she loved mixing with people, and she just loved being around them, loved just talking to them. And what I like about a girl is the same thing. I love someone that can bring people around and sit around a table and just engage in conversation. And well, things have we've just been friends for 8 months on the ship at that point, and things have progressed a little bit. It's like the first morning, she's never been a morning person, and that morning and that specific morning, she just felt a little bit more how can I say, more funny, more alive. And she was eating Pringles in the dining room, and for some reason I was there to get coffee, and she was playing with the Pringles like a little duck, if you change the Pringles around. And when she turned around, it was just a funny sight for me, like totally. And right there and then I said to God, if this is a woman that I really adore, Lord Jesus, I really want you to help me engage into this relationship. And since then, we've just been chatting a lot, and coming Mexico, things have progressed. We were at a dry dock there, and we were just at that point getting to know each other.
Let me just tell you, a dry dock is where you take the ship out of the water and you fix it and stuff. It isn't like the ship was sailing on sand. So it's just let you know that.
It's sailing kind of on metal, like just floating there on a dock somewhere. And we just visit each other quite a lot and getting to know one another. I think that was the best thing of it all, is getting to know a person that is very in depth connected with God as well, and with herself and what she wanted for her life. And for me, that was kind of the thing where God has taught me to engage into that relationship, is just to get to know that side that she brings, that colorfulness into the world, and how she shepherds everyone. That was, for me, was the best thing ever, just to see. And I said to God, I know this is not the place and the rules that we have on the ship right now, but can you please help me? And since then, Yes, we had our challenges, but yes, we had our fruitfulness. We had our best of times with the Duzies and with everyone on the ship.
Okay, let me just pause you there for a second, because
Sure.
I just have to let you know, if you are a couple and you go to the ship, you don't have to just create your own boundaries, because the ship also creates boundaries for you.
Speaking of boundaries.
So I'm gonna jump up to Sam for a few moments, because Sam, you came already with the relationship. I want to back up a little bit because I didn't hear your side of the story. When did you first realize that Shawnee was worth pursuing?
Okay. Well, for me, very simple. Actually, for me, I didn't know. Actually, you know, many of us will always in life when we're dating, we will ask this question. You know, is this the one? Is this the right one for me? You know, God or to your mentor, is this the right one for me? So for me, I always see as, okay, how would I know if this is the right one for me? And then God called me to the ship, and then knowing that after I know Shani personally, and we were very, very close friends, and like we were very best friends. And after a year before going to the ship, Shani also did. We share a lot of stories together. And Shani did tell me, "Hey, I also had this calling, you know, an inner calling that I think God is trying to open this door for me, and I really have this heart for the ship, you know." Then I realized that, wow, this girl has this vision who is very similar to mine, and we have something where God really put in our heart, the seed of mission. And so I see it as, wow, God, where is this going? So I take a further step, and we talk to each other more. We keep each other accountable, and we keep each other realize that, okay, now is 1 year to the 1 year before we go to the ship, you know. Let's see where this friendship will go into. So after chatting along, you know, keeping each other talking about how is your preparation going, and so on and so forth, I realized that this girl has the same goal and vision alongside with me. And then so that's where I decided to pray about it, and of course to take the next step to go into a friendship, to a relationship. Yeah, so that's where I felt like I felt there's more spark coming in, as I would say, and then it just goes bigger, and the feeling of joy inside, and at the same time knowing that it's gonna be a long term, and it's gonna be somewhere that I see myself with in the future, because we have the same vision and same goals. So that's where more of our relationship and how it started.
Yeah, a little ship illustration here. When you have sparks, you have enough sparks, you have fire. And always we were training about what to do in case of fire. And so we're gonna look at some of the boundaries that were put on in case those sparks start going. In all of your cases, there were sparks that began to grow. I wonder if we want to take a quick look at the video about the distance from yesterday.
Yeah. Just one quick question Megan's asking here. The ship is a very unusual situation when it comes to relationships. And she's interested to know if any of you had any relationships before the one you're currently in.
It's good.
Or if this was your first relationship, like, where did you come from in the midst
so
of this?
So basically we can go around the circle, and whichever way the circle is, and just yes you did or no you didn't, or just give
Let's start with Shawnee.
Quick response.
Ladies first.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Okay.
You had a relationship before. So Sam, was it your first relationship? He was your 10th or something like that.
He was the spark.
I also wonder, Shani. I'm wondering.
This is a moment to ask.
Aren't you glad you came on today?
Shawnee, don't
spit on me. Don't spit on me.
Wait. What do you say? Don't spit on me. What's going on here? What is this moment coming to?
That is the relationship attack if anything happens, you know? You know, sometimes, you know, like Shani will sometimes spit on me, or like, you know, it's just like a relationship type of way of loving, but you know, it's like attacking, you know.
Wait, you have to explain this for
term of endearment.
We were having a chat one time, and all of a sudden this happened, the spit, and we were like, Okay, we've never actually seen this. This is like a boundary that is okay. Can you explain it just a little bit further for those of us who are sitting here who can't actually experience the spit attacking love?
You know, maybe it's just a Chinese. I'm not sure it's a Chinese cultural thing. Maybe it could be, but it's very interestingly that our relationship, whenever I try to say something that Shani's just got don't really like it, or she get annoyed, she would just spit on me. Like she would just, yeah, like, you know,
like on your shoulder, or where does the spit go?
On my face. Yeah. So like
it's a boundary. It's like a liquid boundary that stops the conversation. Yes. It's perfect.
Yes.
Perfect.
And you're okay with that, Sam?
Well, the relationship is a lot of give and take, you know. So I would say it doesn't really physical hurt me. So I wouldn't mind actually. In the beginning, it was a little bit like, whoa, spit on me is like very offensive. But after that, realizing like, okay, maybe this is her way of showing love in just a different way. It's not too bad. Sometimes she spit on me and I spit on her and she spits back on me again, and then, you know, but I would never win against her.
Greet each other with a holy spit. It's just,
yes.
Yeah.
Shawnee, and this boundary is okay for you. You don't mind spitting on Sam when it's needed.
But wait. But before that, I think I need to clarify. Okay, I think I'm improving in a way that like sometimes I speak, but just with the sound, without anything coming out. Okay, I'm improving.
Nice.
Sometimes it just can't be helped. Huh?
It's a thought that counts. How about you, Rian? Have you ever been in a situation where someone had to spit on you in love?
You know, that's very offensive for me. In South Africa, you don't do that.
It's a culture thing.
Yeah, you don't do that. Well, if my sister used to throw me with coffee because she was angry at me, but in a relationship, that is just odd. That never happens.
And
such unique relationships we have here.
Have you had relationship with other girls before Elaine came along, or is she the first?
Oh no, I have had other relationships before. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
And what about Elaine? Elaine had other relationships before you?
Yes, she did.
Okay. Yeah. And what about you, Sam? First relationship with Shawnee, or?
First relationship with Sam for sure. No, Shani is not my first. Definitely, I had a little bit of experience. I have a relationship in the past that, of course, builds me, and it has a lot of impact. But I believe all these different parts and parcels of life leads me to more into to learn and gain something from it, and for the next one. And now I know what I need from my relationship and how I can make it better. So
that's good.
Thank you guys for sharing. That helps us know a little bit. So
when we're talking about these areas with guys and girls, relationships, boundaries, one of the questions that always comes up is, well, how far can you go? And it's not always just physically. Sometimes it's mentally, spiritually. I mean, and yesterday we stopped at this place along the road and we made a quick little video. We want to watch this and then jump into really more of what are the boundaries and how do you know where to move forward and where to stop.
Yep. So we'll just stay right here in the video. We're going to play the video here. And we're all down the bottom, so that's fine.
Dan. And I'm Susie, and together we're Duzie. We're here in Echo Basin in Washington. And tomorrow we're looking at together we're Duzie. We're here in Echo Basin in Washington. And tomorrow we're looking at the whole question of boundaries in relationships. And oftentimes people say what?
People ask us like, how far can I go? And here we are in this is like a cliff hanging over. And I don't know if you can see from here, but like how far can we go if we want to? How far can we go? Like
you just stay there.
Hang on to you. We go right over.
I just want you to look yourself. I can't look at you at the camera. You just stay there.
Hang on.
down there.
I don't want to go.
Those are cars down there.
Maybe rather
You go
than
too
ask
far.
how far
This
can
is
I
a
go.
border right here. We don't go
Down
past
there.
this point.
Let's be healthy here instead of rather than ask how far
This
can
is
I
a
go.
border right here. We don't go past this point.
Let's be healthy here instead
I
of
want to show
asking
you the
how
other
far
side of
can
the
I go.
road
Maybe
because
like
there is this
how
really
healthy
cool
can I
fortress.
be?
Now, even better, I want to show you the other side of the road because there is this really cool fortress. There is this boundary made with that is a line. You know when you very, very clear. That is a boundary. That is a line. You know when she's going a long ways, I think. But anyway, tomorrow I want you to join us. She's going a long ways, I think. But anyway, tomorrow I want you to join us. Whole area of boundaries. How to build the right boundaries. How to communicate them to people within your relationship. How to build the right boundaries. How to make them strong and how to communicate them to people within your relationship.
All right.
That was a bit of fun.
Sorry, I think there was a bit of an echo there. I'm not sure why, but we saw this place, and literally you could walk right to the edge, and
then it was straight down.
And I think sometimes people in relationships, because they're not aware of the need for boundaries, they think, how far can I go? What is the farthest I can go without falling a long way to my death? And I find it to be such the wrong question, where if I just look the other way, there's these huge rocks where it's a very clear boundary. And I think we have to set those things. But maybe we can look at how do we build it?
Yeah, sure. So we heard the starting of each of your stories, and I just want to take us all the way to where we're at right here. Sam and Shawnee, how would you describe your relationship right now? Like, how committed are you? Are you, still in friendship stage? Like, it's up to you. How would you describe your relationship? And then we're coming to you to find out, Rian, where you are in your relationship in a moment.
For me personally, I think comparing to how the relationship was on the ship, I would say it's improving, and then it's getting into, as in like it's becoming more like fruitful. Should I say that? Yeah, sure. I think so. Yeah, and yeah, we are and I'm glad that we are quite near to the stage of getting married. I'm just waiting for Sam to take some action.
There you go.
Hint.
Yeah.
Sam, over to you, I guess.
No pressure there, but where are you in the relationship?
Well, for me, I think we're on a very stable and healthy relationship now. The best so far, I would say, in our past 4 years, because it's about gonna be 4 years already. But I would say it's because on the ship that we had a lot of relationship boundaries, as what Duzie was mentioning. To those who have not known how having a relationship on the ship is like, with so much of limitation and so much boundaries. And we also understand the fact that there's 400 of us in this one small matter box. So that's why there's a lot of boundaries that we shouldn't go over it. So we were very limited in terms of kind of like showing love to our partners in the relationship. So we struggle a little bit personally. But after coming back to the ship, it has been already 4.5 months since we left the ship, and it's really, really good to know that it's beginning much more healthier. Our relationship, we have less boundaries, we have less limitation. We can spend more time together. Whereas on the ship, it's a little bit hard for us, where there's a lot of people, and we just couldn't build our relationship. So now I would say it's in a healthy stage, and we really thank God for it.
Yeah, you can't build your relationship on spitting alone. There has to be more. Has to be more.
Hitting.
Now, yeah, a new level.
Yeah, Rian, what about you? Where you met, you finally got permission to build the relationship. Megan had a follow-up question. Did external boundaries on the ship help or hinder you in your relationship? Sam spoke of that a little bit. And then Rian and Elaine, you finally got permission to start your relationship, and yet with so many external boundaries. Tell us a little bit, maybe answer that question, and then tell us where you're at currently in your relationship, Rian.
All right, so from the ship's point of view, yes, when we received our, we can now be an SP friendship, as the ship would say, there were still a lot of challenges because myself and Elaine are very lovable people, and touching was a big thing on the ship. So our biggest challenge was on the ship to have that type of boundary, because when we hug too long, we would be called into the office, and they would speak to us about our touch. So we had to work through that boundaries of what the rules were, and it was a great challenge for us. And at some points we had our lows, we had our highs. But what we've learned from all these boundaries is that looking today where we, even as a relationship, not married yet, we have that respect for each other and that boundary of, hey, we know how far we can go until it's a stop. So the ship has taught us quite a lot on their rules and boundaries, and I do respect it. There was times where I would be very angry, but I would I would sit and think, okay, you know what, this actually makes sense. So and that for me was a great experience to learn. Now we have been on an incredible journey, visiting last year, getting engaged. But now we are in a little bit of a distance. And what we've learned from each other is communication. Communication for us is so vital, so important. And especially if it's two different type of cultures. I'm back here in South Africa, and how I communicate and how she communicates totally different. And we have created a strong communication boundary that we have, because I can be very Afrikaans culture sometimes, and it doesn't make sense for her how the way I speak, but I would then be like, you know what, I kind of know what I'm doing right now, so I need to understand her point of view as well. Where the distance, it can create like the heart, the sore, the pain. But we have interesting creative ideas how to bring each other close to each other, even if it's just over a screen. And we can share the love with each other, and then it feels like we are actually sitting face to face and have that intimate talk that we love so much.
Yeah, I do have a question. I want to jump in a little bit deeper. In your relationships, you have some boundaries that you set. I would love you to think about one of the boundaries you've set for yourself. This could be a physical boundary, could be a spiritual or social boundary, could be a mental boundary. I don't really care. But I'd love to know, here is a boundary we set, and how did you together choose that was a boundary for you? So take a moment and think about that. Just what is a boundary you've set? You built that in your relationship. How did you actually get there, and how did you communicate that this was? Because a lot of times we've discovered when a couple gets together, someone has a boundary here and someone has a boundary here, and there has to be sort of a give and take to come to that place. So I would love to hear from both of you one of those situations.
And while we're thinking, Rian, you didn't tell us about you and Elaine's current status of relationship.
He said engaged.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
I was listening for it and I missed it. I wanted to celebrate. Woo woo! They're engaged. Okay, so sorry I missed the celebration moment. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So our plan is to get married in October. Just for everyone to know, but we are waiting for the government to tell us you can actually go to America. So I'm waiting on that one. Dan, for your question, we definitely had to set a physical boundary, a boundary where in my past experience of relationships, I failed, and this is something I communicated to Elaine at the start already. And I said to her, Elaine, I'm a person that has past experience, and I, as personally from God, I cannot jump that boundary ever again. And she just respected it from the start, and she was just behind me from the start. And it actually, we were challenged at sometimes, but we had that value of that boundary, or that physical boundary, and we kept to it. And that for me was a very big thing. And since then, our relationship got stronger because of that boundary that I discussed from the beginning. The spiritual boundary, for me, God time is very important, very, very important. And she really allows me having that time. And when I say that I'm going to spend time with Papa, she respects it. She will only come to me once I'm done, or she will bother me once I'm done. So she really gives me my boundary space with me and Jesus, which for me is so nice, because that space for me is sacred. That's my sacred boundary space. That's where I want to be with God. The other day, she spoke of self-care. I know that's a great boundary to speak of, because in relationships, we have to have a weekend or a day or two just to reflect by ourselves, not be bothered by our peer, our person, but just a day or a weekend where you can go and you can self-care in peace and think and just process through the life that you have with this person, or with God, or wherever you are right now. So self-care for me is also very important once we actually had a conversation, because that's a great opportunity for you to connect with God the whole time, and where you don't have the worldly things around you. You're face to face with the person that wants you to have boundaries, and God does want that. And other boundaries we had is communication, I think. There's something I needed to learn, because I was terrible at communication, and the boundaries doesn't always mean that it's something you have to box in and you cannot do. Some boundaries means like, this is my communication boundary, and I need to kind of raise to a level of communication, which at the start I wasn't there at all. So I had to compromise that and to learn how to communicate love, how to communicate as her man one day. And I needed to set an example for her, and that she can value that boundary of communication.
So we've got a few things going on here. We've got boundaries that are set from past mistakes. We have boundaries according to your need. You have boundaries that include God, what you need for yourself. You also have boundaries that are going to take you up to a stretch boundary. These are all really good.
Yeah.
How about with Sam and Shawnee? How about where have you had to draw some lines?
Shani, you want to go first?
Okay, yeah. Okay. Actually, while Ryan was speaking, and I was thinking, okay, what's my point? But to be honest, Ryan, you took my
It's Rian.
Rian. Ryan, what am I saying? Ryan. Oh my goodness. Rian. Oh, so
You know.
My
Chinese way of speaking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't interrupt me several times. Okay, so what did I want to say? Okay, yeah. So my first 2 points is actually exactly the same as what Rian has just said, because I really want to thank God for how the ship has taught us to know how to have quiet time, no matter how busy we are. So like Sam, he knows that every morning when I wake up, my first thing to do is to spend time with God. So once I said, okay, now it's my quiet time, so he said, okay. So no matter what happened, he won't text me, he won't call me, except it's for urgency. Yeah. And then, so maybe I can add another thing. I would say, I don't know how should I classify it? Maybe time boundaries or something like that. So because I'm staying here with my brother, right? So of course, like other than my brother and Sam, so I don't have any family member here because they are all in hometown. So, and I did make it very clear with Sam that when it's my time to spend with my brother, so means it's me and him. So when I feel like, okay, it's okay for you to join, then I will invite him, or else it's just me and him, it's like our family bonding time, kind of. Yeah. So, and I think it really helps a lot, as in like, helps me and my brother to improve our relationship with one another, because it's not easy for our culture, especially, to be open, or to be close to one another at this age. I think because we are all busy with our own stuff, and actually this helped me a lot, I personally think. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Anything you want to add there, Sam?
Well, for me, I guess for me on the ship, it was very, very challenging in terms of talking about boundaries, because we were already experiencing life as a couple before the ship. And then when we went to the ship, there was a lot of boundaries on what we could do and what we shouldn't do and couldn't do at all. So there's a lot of boundaries there as compared to, if you have not been into a relationship with this person before the ship, So I got something to compare before the ship, while we're in this relationship, and during the ship time, and also after, which is now getting much better. During the ship time, I would like to explain a little bit and stretch more a little bit on certain boundaries that actually, what as I was mentioning, like there's some boundaries that sometimes Shani and I had this, we had this being taught very often, like on the ship is very, very hard, because we realize we are very exposed to different cultures and international community. So we realized that, especially for an example, while the ship was in South America, we were in Latin America, some countries, they greet by kissing, they greet by kissing on the cheek. The guy will kiss the girl. So many times I see Shani being kissed by a guy, and so many other stuff. So for me, in the beginning, I was like, whoa, this is a little bit too much there. Like, whoa, okay, hang in there. Because I don't come from this culture. But after knowing that, it's a culture thing, it becomes more to an acceptance on where this boundary can stretch up to. So this boundary for someone kissing Shani as a greeting, in the beginning, it was a little bit tough to accept, but after a while, it came to a realization, okay, this is something that I can still take it in, I can still acceptable, and that's where the boundaries has been accepted. So that is just for one example. And also for another example, like for me on the ship sometimes, or for Shani as well, we got our different gender friends. Like I got a lot of girlfriends, she got a lot of boyfriends as well on the ship. So coming from the culture as well, sometimes we can get, or maybe it's just a relationship thing, we can get very sensitive, or jealousy happens when we talk to an opposite sex. But it's a matter of, in our relationship, we it's a matter of trust and honesty, and we always tell each other that, okay, what is our partner, or what, for me, I will always tell myself, what is something that I should tell Shani that she needs to know in order to give her the security and to give her the trust in me in a relationship, so that to some boundaries, when I go and talk to my girlfriends, my other girlfriends, you call it like friends of many girlfriends, yeah, at least she knows, okay, these boundaries has little bit exceeded, because maybe Sam has many girlfriends, but at least Sam is communicating to me what's going on, who is she, and what she needs to hear. So at least she felt the secure there. So she felt the acceptable there, the acceptance there. So that's where some boundaries, she can just, not to say let me go over it, but she still accept, and she knows that at least there is certain things that I can give her the trust, then she's willing, she's okay for it.
Yeah.
So
when we say some of those things, because even in our relationship, being married, we had definitely have boundaries. And when we lived on the ship, public displays of affection, we just said that's probably not the best place out in public to give 100%. A kiss. So for us, even who are married, it was very strange. We had to shift a lot of thinking. But then we were in Latin America, and like we would be at a table sitting there, and Susie would come in. She's a kisser. She would go around.
I love Latin America.
She would go around the table, kiss everyone except me. And she would skip me
because we weren't allowed to show affection, right?
This is so strange. And I watched this day after day, and I started.
And I was giving affection to these people, but I wasn't. I was being cultural to them and not showing affection.
I was feeling like something is wrong here. So we actually had this big discussion. We have to reset some boundaries here because it'd be me. I mean, every once in a while, she would token give me a kiss on the top of my head, laugh, and move on. And it was like, am I your pet dog? I mean, it was like, and it was very funny. And so we really did have to go and reset that boundary.
Yeah.
Because I think it was strange for everybody.
And he was like, at least do the same as you did to everybody else. But I was like, oh, but I'm not allowed, but I am allowed. And then we sort of loosened up, especially with people like you guys who we really knew well. We felt a little bit more comfortable, for even Dan to put his arm around me. Initially that was like, whoa, you can't hold hands. You can't. And we're married, right? It's pretty tough. Honestly, it's pretty tough in any version of having relationship in a community fishbowl of the ship.
So I say all this because we had to reset. And I'm just wondering if there's been any time in your relationships where you've had to look at a boundary and say, maybe you've gone too far and you had to back up. Maybe something had changed, so you need to adjust that, because sometimes we get very rigid that here's the line, we don't ever cross this. But
that's not the reality of boundaries, actually. They change.
Maybe you've stepped across, you have to back it up. I know some people that's like, we thought we could do this, but that led to this, so we have to back it up. I just would love you all just to speak for a few moments on resetting a boundary if you've had
adjusting
to do that.
A boundary forward or back. And how do you talked about how to set some of your boundaries and you communicated them.
A lot of different values behind setting them.
Right. What happens when the boundaries have to change? What does that look like? And how do you communicate it?
Okay. So
Elaine
is my first godly relationship. Past relationships wasn't godly at all. There was no boundaries, like Megan has put there a question there. And what I've learned from that is if I don't have boundaries, I lose self-control. So by having Elaine, the first godly relationship I had, I knew by having this boundary would help me in a bigger scale than I had before. Because if I don't have a boundary, then I don't have value my person, and I don't value Elaine. So for me especially, that was the past experience of problems I had, but changing this in a new way, it has, it made me so happy knowing that God is backing this boundary up with me. He is helping me achieve this physical boundary. And for me, it is so respectful towards Elaine that I can actually handle her the way that God has asked me to.
It's good.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that physical boundary. And you talked about it even when you started with Elaine, and you just said this was the past and we have to have it. But sometimes, how each of us interpret those boundaries is really interesting. One thing we love to do is double date couples. And when we sat with you guys, we asked you, what are your boundaries? What's okay? What's not okay? And many times, the guy and the girl will have very different, this is okay. And the girl will go, that is not okay.
They haven't talked
about it. And so many times also when your commitment level increases, then you can physically, emotionally, mentally have a different boundary. And we can't we can't just assume that it's all the same or that what I'm thinking is what you're thinking. We even find that true for us, that
I mean,
we have to communicate.
We talked about this last week. With my boundary was I was not going to kiss her till we were engaged.
Like,
well, I hadn't communicated that at first, and she's like, "What is wrong with me?" And then we did communicate it, and she's still thinking, "What's wrong with you?" And,
Are you sure?
But then when we decided we will get married, I remember stepping across that boundary and giving her a kiss, and she was like, whoa, something just happened.
That was really good. Maybe too good.
And so it's very interesting to then clarify we're at a different place in our relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Rian, we're having people in the chat. Thank you. They're saying thank you, Rian, for your honesty and for sharing so openly and honestly. And we do appreciate that. Thanks so much.
So Sam and Shani, how about a reset in your life? Has there been anything you've had to reset?
Okay, I would like to share just a very quick story about boundaries of what happened on the ship. So I think it was about the last 6 months on the ship. I was 6 months before we came back. So our relationship was at a very, I would say, the worst situation ever. Okay, so just so something just happened, and just made me feel like, I think I should take a step back in this relationship, as in, but we did communicate, because Sam is a guy that, like, he wants the best for me, so he asked, okay, because he could sense that something is wrong with me. He could feel no much love and care and feelings from my side. So he tried to figure things out, but then what I did is kind of wrong, I think, but I tried to hide a lot of my feelings, and what I said is just, can we have like a pause to in this relationship, so that I had more of my own space and freedom, and to think about it. But I think it was just kind of like an excuse for myself to take a rest from it, but not dealing it with the right way. But God is really good, because after that, okay, long story short, I know that Sam has been praying so hard, even though I know he suffered a lot within himself, but
Prayer
also
answered.
but also at the same time, I prayed very, very hard, even though there's a little voice in my heart that I know is not from God. I know clearly that it's not from God, and I know that God wants me to keep going on, to keep fighting for the relationship, but what I chose is to step back. But God works, because like, even though I had my own way of thinking, but at the same time, I'm still praying hard. I said, God, I can't do this by myself. So I really prayed a lot. I said, just, help me to break through, and God really, man, this is like a miracle. So just a random night when Sam was very busy with his events. So I was thinking, okay, maybe I should call my mom, like, I just feel like talking to her. And then when I called her, and then she was just randomly asking, about me and Sam. So I told her everything. So she told me something that didn't sound so nice to me. Even until today, Sam still don't know what is that, what my mom has told me. He kept asking, but I didn't want to tell. So just through that conversation, God, like, kind of give me a very light slap, like, Shani, you should wake up, And then, after that call, and then, like, something just changed, my heart and everything just changed. And then my attitude and everything towards him is like a 360-degree, transformation. And then he was like, what's going on? What's wrong with you? Why have you changed so suddenly? And then
Prayer answered.
It's all by God's grace, and He's working in this relationship. Yeah. And I thank God that I didn't give up, or else,
And I just, before Sam, you continue, you brought up a really great point there, that even though the relationship is between you two, that doesn't mean you can't bring other people into it. There is a huge need for accountability. I know with both of you couples, when we're on the ship, there were times we just sat together and dialogued. And I think sometimes the danger in a relationship is we think, well, this is just something you and I have to figure out. But it's so important to bring in a mother, to bring in a friend, to bring in an accountability partner or a couple who can just listen a little bit and give you advice, even maybe advice you never share, but it sort of brings you back to, okay, what are our values and how are we going to move forward with this? So I think that's something that I just heard that we need to remember in these relationships, that it isn't just the two people. There's a community that needs to be invited into the relationship as well.
Yeah, Sam, how about for you?
Well, for me, talking about resetting boundaries, going back or going forward on boundaries, for me, I realized that in relationship, especially me and Shani, every one of us, especially the both of us, have both individual thoughts on different boundaries. For example, I'm very okay if Shani go out with a guy that I know very well, and she's, for me, it's okay. But for her, it's not okay if I go out with the girl that she knows well. Meaning that I'm okay if she goes out with a guy or with her guy friends and everything, but she's not okay. So then I realized that that's both different boundaries level. You know, she's okay, but I'm not okay, and I'm okay, she's not okay. Like even like just for chatting on messages, like on WhatsApp and whatsoever. Like for me, maybe it's okay. It's okay for me to talk to girls. Maybe she's not okay about it and everything. Then we sort of had a few times we did really argue. We did really thought about it, fought and everything. Because of jealousy and because of so many things, but our boundaries are so different from one another. We realized that, okay, I'm okay, but she's not okay. She's okay, I'm not okay. So when we came to this point of stage in time of the relationship, that's where we begin to be more open to one another, telling, okay, how are we gonna accept this, and how are we gonna come to a mutual agreement that Shani's boundary and my boundary can reach to a center point, of agreeing with one another, accepting to one another on how this relationship can go forward. If not, if I don't accept her boundaries, she don't accept my boundaries, we will always still stuck at this point, and we will always have this conflict there. So it's a lot of whenever we had conflicts or arguments or jealousy, something's come across, we will always come back to ourselves. Okay, where is this boundaries that we have already crossed the bar or crossed the limit or crossed the fence, and how are we gonna make that fence back again, that where we have a mutual agreement and that we do not accidentally step over to it. And we have that communication and trust and honesty is they're very, very important in our relationship. So this is how we always keep our relationship going, and that's how we won't exceed what we're not supposed to.
It's good.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that,
We have
Sam.
a few people there needing to leave. David's leaving. Thanks for joining us. Please, anyone who is leaving right now at this hour mark, please leave in the chat one of your takeaways, something that maybe you gleaned from the conversation so far. We're going to go into a backstage moment of just question and answer that we can dialogue. Hopefully, Shawnee will be able to come back in. We've lost her here for a moment. Maybe it was something Sam said that drove her away for a bit. But I'm sure. You know, I love what she said, especially about the pause, because I think sometimes in relationship we're so on all the time that we're afraid to pause, to take a second look. And I know some people have actually got into marriage and then they're like, oh, wow, I wish we would have paused. So I think what Shawnee said there was really important. I think just the dialogue you guys have back and forth, the freedom, and yet also we always say that the key is to over communicate. You think, well, I said it already. No, over communicate. You have to say it over and over again.
Yeah, studies say it takes 7 times to actually hear something. So if you said it once, then you probably have 6 more times to just make sure it's clear. Sam, it looks like Rian had some technical difficulties. It's just you and us, but we'll keep you. I know you have to go shortly, but we'll keep you for a few more minutes. Yeah, both of them are out trying to come in. I think it's so interesting what we just heard about boundaries, shifting, resetting. Let's talk about it. I need more time to myself. All of you talked about having time, especially with Jesus, and that was a real priority for you. I've also heard many couples where they got out of a relationship and they were like, oh, I can't be in a relationship with you because of Jesus. You know, like I have to have my Jesus time. And Jesus was always the, let's just say excuse, right? And people's hearts were so hurt in the process of being, having that as an excuse.
Well, many times it wasn't that Jesus was saying it was their only excuse to get out of it.
Right. But I heard you guys, both Rian and Elaine and Sam and Shauna, you guys have talked about just the value of having that God time. And Rian, can you hear again? Turn on your microphone.
Turn on your microphone. Blue button microphone.
Blue circle button. We can see you, but we can't hear you.
No.
No. We can see you, but we can't hear you. I'm not quite sure what's going on. We can see that you're talking, so sorry about that. Yeah. So the page got refreshed. Okay, so it looks like we're in live here from all around the world. So things happen. Yeah, so Rian, I would love for you to hear, but I would love for you to say, but we can't hear you. I think one of the things I really value, especially in your relationship right now, while you guys are so separated, you guys have quality times together. And I love that. I think it's weekly. You have date nights, even though you're far away. And I've seen some pictures of very creative things. I wish you could tell us the story. I don't know. I don't know how. A little bit in there. I don't know if you can type. Like, tell us about your date nights. I love. They both. I don't want to steal your thunder, but it's such a good story. I know that. Elaine sends me pictures. I got all dressed up. You know, they're just going to be on screen-to-screen date and having an online. She gets dressed up and they fix their food and they maybe sometimes do movies. I don't know. Am I saying it properly, Rian? Movies or conversations. They like truly plan their date night, even though they're on other sides of the world. And I love that value of that boundary. They both have touch as love languages, and they have the value of quality time. And even though they're far away, I love that you guys keep that boundary.
Let's see, Rian, can you hear us?
Are we hearing you?
You can hear us.
We can hear you.
We can't hear you.
I wish we could tell the story. So I hope I told it somewhat like how it is.
That's good. So maybe we can just open up for any other questions, and Rian, you can type things there in the chat. But anyone who's in the chat, if you have any questions you'd like to speak into this, we've really looked at the building of boundaries. They've all talked at different levels. They've had to build them, strengthening them. They've had to communicate them. They've had to reset them. They've talked about accountability. This is sort of the overall direction. We didn't want to get in today to say, here's the list, and everyone has to follow the same list. Do this and
don't do that, because that's not the reality in relationship.
But a lot of the boundaries do come from our relationship with God, from listening to other people, from wisdom. Sometimes they come from past mistakes, and you have to back up a little bit. Hopefully we set up boundaries that we don't go over the cliff in many different areas. And I think the other thing that came out very clear to me today was that oftentimes in relationships, we only think about the physical boundaries. But you've seen very clearly today, there's a lot of boundaries in other areas that are also necessary if we're to go forward. Susie and I, yesterday, as we were driving, we were tired and all the rest, and we had some boundaries of let's not talk about that now. We're too tired to talk about that now. Then just a boundary of we are not ready to discuss deeper things because we're tired. And I think those are very, very healthy in any relationship we have.
So one of the boundaries that we came up with even yesterday, we have a new dog. We've been traveling. We found out that we were doing things really well as partners, like side by side. We were doing things together. And I was like, we're not looking at each other eye to eye. We're not kissing each other like we usually do, like because we don't have that face-to-face moment. And I really am missing that, and I'm really needing that. And we're like, can we just take extra time to be face-to-face and not just walking the dog and not just doing Duzie Live or whatever we're doing work-wise side by side. We really wanted to have more face-to-face time. So even since yesterday, we've been very intentional because this was something that I needed, that we needed, and we didn't realize that. And as we were talking, we came up with that.
It's hard to go eye to eye when you're driving on the road for 15 hours. She's like, I don't think that's too healthy if I look at you right now.
But when we stop, so instead of grabbing the dog and taking him for a walk, we would stop, look at each other, kiss each other, and like just take even 1 second more. And honestly, that boundary, like that's a stretch boundary that we just realized we weren't interacting in a way that was very healthy and esteeming and something that we very much value. So every point in the relationship, there are things that you need to like go forward on, go back. Oh yeah, we're missing this. Let's add this. Let's reset that because we want to go forward healthily. Of course, being pleasing to God and being self-controlled, but really esteeming one another in the relationship and what is needed.
So I want to ask any of you couples that are there, is there anything that you are still saying, but I wish I would have said this? I would love for you to have a last thought in regards to boundaries, relationships, and other people can still ask questions as well.
And Sam, why don't you go first? Because I know you have another meeting to hop on to very shortly. So why don't you go first?
Well, okay. My another meeting got canceled, so I can stay longer. So
okay, great.
don't need to worry. But I can start with my sharing. I always think that in every relationship, no matter how you started it, it's more towards the process, the journey on how you take your relationship to, on how you want your journey on the process of your relationship to grow to what is the ending like. So for me and Shani, we always focus on, okay, our goals, our vision must be always on aligned with one another. We must always have a mutual understanding with one another. We also realize one of the boundaries that we suffer a lot is love language. Her love language is physical touch, and on the ship, I couldn't really give her that physical touch because I'm very conservative about it. And my love language is totally not physical touch. My last one is like physical touch, but my first one is serving and time and everything. So it was really, really a lot of different things in our love language that sometimes we didn't meet up to, but it's more to how I'm not going to change Shani to be my love language, and she's not going to change me to make me to be her love language. But it's more towards on how are we going to help and build one another. Probably if I know what is her love language like, how can I give it to her? And she knows what my love language like and how she's going to give it to me. So for me, it's more towards the whole process of relationship and how the intention of growing together and to journey along together into the next chapter of life, of marriage and everything. So the journeying and the process in the relationship for me is very, very important. And to see if both have the same vision and both have the same right mindset and to have God as the center, then I think we will really go far. That's great in our relationship.
That's great. I love that concept of journeying, processing, have a vision, not just for the current present moment, but where you're going to go in relationship. And Shawnee, I don't know if you heard, he said the marriage word. Did you hear it? So as we go towards, were you listening?
Yeah, of course.
And Elaine just popped in. So Elaine, welcome in. We were, I don't know if you can pop in and do video because Rian is not able to speak. We can only see him.
He's lost his
but
voice.
Would love for you to pop in if you can and tell us about your date nights. Shawnee, how about you? Tell us your thoughts.
I think it's just like what I learned the most throughout this almost 4 years of relationship is that we cannot at all depend on ourselves to love someone, because our love is very limited. And I think what always the incident that I mentioned just now, about 6 months before we left the ship, what happened, I think, is that because I was trying so hard to maintain this relationship by myself, with my own strength, to a point that I felt exhausted and starting, when you start to love someone with your way, you will a lot of times you will see all the bad side, all the you will zoom in or zoom out, zoom into the bad side of this person, but not the good ones. No matter how good the person is, you will always just focus and look at the bad things, So I think it's really important to surrender your heart to God to love someone, because this is my prayer since then. God, I don't want to love Sam with my way, because only God can give me the strength to love God and to love Sam. Yeah. So this is the biggest thing that I gain or I take from these 4 years of relationship journey.
Yeah. That the love doesn't necessarily only come from you. God just pours that out. That's awesome.
Rian wrote something here. You want to read that?
Oh yeah. So Rian, in his nonverbal moment there, even though you look great, Rian, he says the beautiful part of our dates is that we prepare for it. It's such a special time for us. It's just not a video chat, but we set out a time for it. Best part is to see the people watching me sitting alone, having dinner, talking to my phone, but it's so worth it. I'm guessing that's your family or anybody wherever you're at. He's in probably a beautiful date night spot by himself with his phone, but he's doing it. Yeah, and love language, Rian is reminding us, is so important. In case you don't know, there are 5 love languages, and usually we have them in some sort of an order. So we have words of affirmation, touch, quality time, gifts, and acts of service. Yeah.
Yay, acts of service.
And Sam and Dan both have acts of service as their top love languages. And Shawnee and I, we're in the touch category. I think Rian and Elaine also have touch as their very high ones as well. That's one of the very foundational ways to help each other understand your love language. And sometimes it's a giving love language and sometimes it's a receiving. And not only just learn it once, but have check-in moments like, how are you doing? How am I doing in showing you love? I think I'm serving Dan. And then he says, yeah, actually, when you do that, Susie, that is showing me love. And that's like well, we're talking today about stretch boundaries. It stretches me to show him love in a way that is really important for him to see.
I love this comment.
Okay, Rian lost everything. He lost audio. He said it was such a pleasure to have been on this video. Which comment?
This one.
Thanks for having me. Oh, Direne says, loving someone with our own kind of love is exhausting.
Mm-hmm. Wow, awesome.
That's great, Direne. And Direne also had a takeaway. She said, my takeaway for tonight, she's coming from the Philippines, so she's on Malaysian time like you guys, is that I realized it's healthy to give grace to each other as we set and reset boundaries and have this understanding and acceptance as we communicate our own boundaries for the interest and benefit of one another in love.
That's
good.
so true.
Yeah,
Very,
well
very true.
said, and Irene, thank you for that.
That's great.
And one of the things that Dan and I were talking about, we're oftentimes checking in with each other on boundaries, like what is helping us in our relationship, what is not helping us, and these resetting and communication of boundaries. And sometimes Dan, in knowing me, in relationship with me, he can see something in me that is not quite okay. And when he speaks it out, I value that so much. And that helps us also together reset these boundaries.
Something else we've recently started is I guess it's a movable boundary, but like in the car the other day, Susie had a lot to say, and she was telling me all this
As
stuff.
usual.
But I could tell she was
I have a lot of work.
She was processing, and so I didn't respond at all to her processing. She was just processing. And then the boundary line for me, before I was able to speak into it, because there were thoughts that were not clear. They were just coming from all over the place. I stopped and I put the boundary in. So what is the story you're telling yourself?
It was so powerful for me.
And so she had to almost go back and recalculate. And the story was very different than even things she was saying. So I don't want to respond to what she's just said, because what she's just said, she's saying to figure out what she's trying to say.
I work like that.
I want to respond. This is a boundary we have. It's my boundary. I don't just react to what comes out of her mouth. I react from when she says, here's the story I'm telling myself as a result of all this stuff, because it's not my job to fix it. It's my job to care. So we both have said this, and we use this line almost daily now. So what's the story you're telling yourself? So once she actually says, so here is what I am actually saying, then I respond to that. And I think that's been so helpful for us.
Yeah, for example, in us, what it was yesterday is, I know Dan so well. I know how he values time. I know how he thinks. I know how, and so I was thinking what Dan was thinking, but I got it very wrong.
She told me for an hour what I was thinking, and none of the things were what I was thinking.
Not thinking that way.
But it was okay. I didn't have to stop her and say, that wasn't what I was thinking. I had to listen.
And I found that in knowing each other so well, I expected him to act in a certain way. And he wasn't at all feeling that, thinking that. And we realized, wow, we actually need to communicate so that I know. And so our new boundary was, I have to ask him what he's thinking and not guess. And
that's true.
Actually, it's so helpful.
Well, I was sitting,
simple.
I was sitting next to her for 5 days in the car, and she kept guessing what I was thinking. It was like, well, just ask me.
And
I'm
so
right
I
here.
did, and it was like, oh, I knew you cared, and I knew you valued that, but wow, I was thinking it very different than you. So very important to ask and communicate, and this new stretch boundary, which is very, everybody's like, yeah, sure, you should ask. But for me, it was like, oh yeah, ask him what he's thinking. So we do that.
Elaine has something here.
Okay, so Elaine is talking about dates. So I'm just reading from the chat here. Sometimes we have dates. This is Rianne and Elaine. Because we can tell we're not communicating well. The date night is part of fixing the connection. Oftentimes, and specifically on the ship, the date nights were so that we knew we had that evening to be together and have specific conversation, and also know that our time together was safe for each of us. Currently, with long distance, we've been able to become creative, whether we go out to eat, him for dinner and I for lunch, and still get ready for the dates. And the other day, I actually had a short list of things I wanted to make sure to ask him, talk with him about, because I knew that during our date, we'd really have the time to specifically invest in a conversation. And I think that just reinforces right there the whole conversation importance. Even as we journey together and we know each other from a long time of investing, that investment never ends, and the communication is so true. What about you, Sam and Shawnee? How have you found communication to be valuable?
Shani?
I think Sam, you can explain more because most of the time Sam is the one that communicate a lot of things with me, and I'm more like assume this and that, and then until he realize and he can read and tell that okay, assumption and all the negative thoughts is coming out again, so he will try to to figure it out by communication. But for me, I think communication is my weakness. So maybe Sam can tell more about it.
Well, I mean, in relationship, as what was Dan and Susie was saying about, it's better to over communicate, and study shows that you need to say 7 times only someone can actually remembers or hears it. And I feel, communication is the key to relationship, to friendship, to anything that you want to build together. And I always feels that because for Shani, sometimes she under communicates, and then I always realize through her emotion, or maybe it's just a girl thing, or maybe it's just a culture thing, that sometimes she's not so expressive in words, but more to her emotion. So when I see her emotion, I can say, hey, what's wrong? What's going on? And then she will like, nothing. Every time her answer will be, it's okay, it's nothing. But I realize, okay, there's something's not right there. So every time I'll be the one who can see her non-verbal communications. That's where I always see through her face expression and everything, I can tell something's not right. And so that's where I always will find a way to still communicate in terms of different ways, but still attack the problem. And then we still, at the end of the day, come to a agreement or a solving solution. So communication is very, very important for us in our relationship, and it's better to over communicate. It's better to tell. We promise each other, and we say this for a long time, and this has been our relationship, that if put yourself into another person's, in your partner's shoes, whether he or she should know about this thing that you should tell him or her or not. And that's very, very important. If you feel that if your partner does that to you, how do you feel? So when you got that in mind, then okay, I think I should tell my another half. And that's where we communicate with one another. So anything happens, we always come back to ourselves, remind ourselves, what if he or she really likes it? The same thing if I do it to her. So if it doesn't, that's where you communicate.
Yeah. I've learned over the years that when Susie says, "Oh, it's nothing," we've just started an amazing puzzle, because when you're doing a puzzle and you look down there and there's nothing in the spot, it actually means it's time to go find the puzzle piece. So that's very, very true. "Oh, it's nothing" means you better find that piece.
Yes.
And I think the reason it's not a game she's playing. There is something there, but it's nothing, because I'm not really sure how to verbalize this. I'm not sure how to actually move forward with this. So it's like, all right, let the chase begin here. Because
and you actually like puzzles,
there's
right?
been some times where it's like, "Oh, it's nothing." Okay. And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's fine." And I walk away, and it's like, bad idea,
I think that's so wise of you, Sam, to notice the verbal non-communication as much as the communication. We've been talking about verbal communication and expressing it out there, but very importantly, just as important, and you highlighted that so nicely, what is not being said, and being sensitive to draw out. Many times I don't know what my missing puzzle piece is, and I really need Dan to help me go on that exploration and find that. And for a few hours yesterday in the car, we did that, and we came to a really great space together that we just realized we have been running so fast and missing some things. And what will it look like? And Dan's wisdom and his puzzle piece finding gift was very, very helpful for me.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, great. I think we've sort of come to an end. I think we have a few things more in the chat there. That we
Okay,
can
yeah.
look at.
So Elaine says, oh, just to carry on. So we still try and value things for long distance dates that are important to us when we date in person. Food, deep conversation, and our favorite TV show. It's important to do favorite things. And Direne says, communicate, ask, listen. So she's just responding to what we said. And Elaine loves that metaphor for communication. And Irene says, so, ha ha ha. So true. When a woman says nothing, there is something in it. Good takeaway, Irene.
It's a woman thing, you know, when there's nothing, there's always something.
Yeah. Sam, I wanted you to expand on that. Then I was like, do I dare? You know, you said, oh, maybe it's a woman thing, or maybe it's this, you know, you put it in the woman category.
Guys are hunters. And so when we go out to hunt, we do not see the deer in the woods. We go looking for it. And I think this is part of the issue here. When we think there's a deer in the woods, when there is nothing that we see, but we know there's a deer in the woods, it's time to go hunting. And sometimes hunting takes a very, very long time, but it's worth it. It is worth it.
Yeah. So I think we've come to a good stopping point. Unless there's something else anybody wants to ask, Sam and Shawnee in particular, this has really been an excellent time together to talk about how we build our boundaries, how we strengthen those boundaries, how we communicate them together, the time when it comes that's needed to reset or change or come to mutual agreement of a new version of our boundary, and accountability in there.
Something from Stephen really worth hitting there.
He says, I don't think it is not apply for women, but for men too. Yeah. Maybe this is the nothing space. So it's important to learn to read the facial expression and body language in communications. So thanks, true. Elaine, for popping in. I know you have to head out. Thank you for stopping in. Maybe you guys, Shawnee or Sam, I'm not sure who wants to do it, talk from your cultural perspective about nonverbal. You do, culturally, there's a lot of nonverbal that happens in your communication. How do you learn that? How important is that?
Shawnee, you want to start first? I think Asians or maybe Chinese in particular, I could say, because I myself is a Chinese, I think we are very conservative in our relationship. We are not so expressive, and in terms of everything, almost everything, like physical touch, most of the Chinese are probably, because we come from we experience so many things on the ship, seeing so many different cultures and international community. So like, let's say for Chinese, or we are not so open to kiss in public, or to even to touch in public, but it's okay for another culture, like kiss, that's how we express love and everything, so there's a lot of different things in terms of cultural wise, but we realize that our non-verbal communication in relationship, I feel that between us, maybe it's just us, that for Shani, she has a lot of non-verbal communication in the relationship. For me, I do a lot of verbal. I will always say, some things I'm not so happy, I'll just go straight to the point. I always over communicate. I always tell her this and that straightforward. But for her, every time there's something, she won't say it out, or she will just keep quiet the whole day. And I say, what's wrong with it? She'll just say nothing's happened. She wants me to find out the puzzle and solve the puzzle, and sometimes I couldn't solve it. I really, really don't know what happened. I really need to dig out until I really go and find the deer in front of me, catch it and show it to her. Like, now you need to tell me. You need to tell me, this has to stop and everything, If not, the sun, before the sun sets, you need to tell me what's going on. And that happens a lot, many times. But after a long, and I realized it happens because of a lot of things. It can be disagreement, it can be jealousy, it can be so many things. And this is part and parcel of relationship. And no matter how we face and encounter all this, I realize the most important thing that we need to overcome everything is with love. You know, how are we gonna talk it out with love? How are we gonna express our emotion with love? And if we do it with love, everything will go on well, and we will grow and learn together from one another. Like I've learned so much from Shani, just being in a relationship with her non-verbal, and just also not to say verbal, but the spitting wise as well. Is of course is like I call it verbal, but like, you know, more to yeah,
Physical communication.
Yeah. Physical communication. For me, it's actually a no thing. For me, it's like, whoa, if someone would spit to me, I would find it very offensive as well. But it's not really spitting like, you know, it's just like, you know, like, yeah,
Shower
nothing
of
comes
blessing.
down. Shower of blessing, or yeah. So it's just every couples and relationship has different boundaries and different way of communications, verbal, non-verbal. It's the matter of how we tackle it, how we approach it, and how we accept it.
Yeah, that's right. Anything to add, Shani?
I think with non-verbal expression, non-verbal communication, actually it helps someone to understand someone better. As in, like, if the same way I express to Sam and maybe to someone else, for example, my brother, you know, they might interpret it differently. So, for example, when Sam, like, one thing happened that make my mood really down on that day, and I don't really talk a lot in the house with my brother, he might thought that I'm just busy, you know. When he asked me, you know, like when he felt something like is wrong with me, he asked me, and I would say nothing. So he was okay, nothing, you know. But for Sam, he will feel it, and he just sense that something is wrong. So I think it's like magic. It's not magic, you know. It's like something really just, I don't know what's the word to describe, but it just help you to know someone better, you know, like you can communicate non-verbally, you know. Yeah. And this can only, you know, and it takes time, and it takes effort, because if no effort is been put in, then if Sam just, you know, like leave it, okay, Shani is okay, it's okay, but then it's actually bringing more harm and damage within myself. I know that if I don't express, it's actually damaging myself, but I'm just, you know, through it, I wish to feel or to see how Sam is going to react, to respond. And yeah, and then down the road, he knows that there's no way for me to hide, whether verbally or non-verbally. No way. There's no way.
It's good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Wow, those are good words. Appreciate that from your perspective. It's so good.
So I would love, before we finish, if anyone is in the chat that you haven't put down yet, what is your takeaway? Just one thing you want to remember, process this out, put it down there. That's a way of helping yourself remember, but also helps us and other people know what was a great thing to hold on to.
Yeah. Don't forget, your life is a remarkable story, an adventure that only you can create.
We exist to motivate and equip you to live fully alive.
Today in this Duzie Live, we were talking about relationship boundaries, and we were blessed so much to have you, Sam, to have you, Shani, all the way from Malaysia, to have Rian from South Africa, and to have Elaine in the chat space in America, and to be able to learn from your two relationships and a bit about ours as well. And may you live fully alive
as you love your life, your world, and your God. My name's Dan.
And my name is Susie, and together we're a Duzie. And we encourage you to live fully and to love fully.
Over the next few weeks while we're on the road, Duzie Live is going to change a little bit. We'll be sending out a few letters to you to let you know what's going to happen and what are the themes. And we'll see you next time.
So yes, once again, thank you Sam, thank you. Shawnee, it has been an amazing time to have you here. And Shawnee, this was your first live, hey?
Yeah.
Thank you, Duzie, for having us. Thank you for the rest of the people who join us tonight. Thank you for hearing our stories and our sharing today. We really appreciate and honored to have us here today. Thank you very much. Good night from Malaysia. Good morning. Have a great day to you guys from the States
Yeah, from
and
the
the
other
rest of the
side
world.
of the world.
All right.
We're so blessed to have had you, and thanks so much.
We'll
No
See you
problem.
soon, and we'd love to have you back on Duzie Live again in the future. You are awesome to have.
And it's time for us
Thank
to have
you.
a double date sometime. So we'll get
Yeah.
together. All right.
Thank you.
Well, yeah. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody. Right before we go, I just want to read. Doreen says, thank you so much, Shawnee, Sam, and Rian. Yep. Awesome and insightful sharing tonight. Thank you so much, Susie and Pastor Dan, for having this such a great blessing. So impressive. I've learned so much. Blessings to you and everyone. Good night from here. And Stephen says also from Malaysia, nonverbal is a thing for us here. What we express verbally might not necessarily express our actual thought. And I think that's so true in relationships, Stephen. So thank you for highlighting that and bringing that up as well.
Thank you all for joining us, and we hope to see you next time here on Duzie Live.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time zone you are. Thanks so much. Bye.